Hi, ArcfieldWeather.com meteorologist Paul Dorian here on Wednesday morning, August the 16th. We are now into the second half of the month of August, and climatologically speaking, certainly the Atlantic Basin tends to ramp up during the second half of the month of August. And really, the main part of the tropical season in the Atlantic Basin is from mid-August to mid-October, tends to peak in the middle part of September. And I think we'll kind of follow that pattern pretty closely this year, meaning the next several weeks could be quite active indeed, because the past few weeks have been rather quiet. And all in all, I still expect a relatively normal, when all is said and done, the number of storms and the timing and everything looks like a relatively normal overall season in the Atlantic Basin. We've had contradictory signals that kind of balance each other out here, with a developing and intensifying El Nino in the Pacific Ocean. Meanwhile, a lot of warmer than normal sea surface temperatures in the Atlantic Ocean. Meanwhile, the Pacific Ocean certainly has some interest right now. It looks like a tropical storm has a very good chance of impacting Southern California by the early part of next week. No doubt moisture can be thrown northward into parts of the southwest U.S. by the time we get to probably the Sunday, Monday time frame. And we'll talk about that as well as the Atlantic Basin here over the next several minutes. This is a look at the Atlantic Basin right now. We have one little wave in the Gulf of Mexico that is being monitored, but really the two areas of interest to me mostly are these two in the far eastern Atlantic. Certainly the front runner here has a chance of intensifying and becoming a named tropical storm. But this second system also really started off as a very strong wave over Africa with an impressive complex of thunderstorms. So both of these need to be watched over the next several days. Ultimately, they can certainly move to the western part of the Atlantic Ocean, and we'll see if they have any impact at all on the Gulf of Mexico, the eastern U.S., come the last week of the month of August. Now, here is a look at the eastern Pacific. A few systems to monitor here. There's one all the way out, well out over the open waters of the eastern Pacific, but this is the one of interest right now. It certainly can move in this direction over the next several days, and whether or not it hugs the coast of Baja California or even moves over Baja California, there's a very good chance that moisture will flow northward right into this region by the early part of next week. Possibility, in other words, of an impacting tropical storm Southern California Sunday, Monday time frame. And certainly Arizona can see some of that moisture as well. So we'll talk about that over the next few minutes and certainly focus in on that over the next several days. Well, getting back to the eastern Pacific Ocean, this is a compilation of the various storm tracks in the ensemble run of the GFS from late yesterday. And certainly there is a wide range, but the average of all of these keeps it off the west coast of Baja California, which is this area of land right here. But certainly there are a few models, a few ensemble runs that push storm farther east right into Southern California or even the western part of Arizona. And even with this track, you can be sure that moisture will likely work its way into this part of the southwestern U.S. Again, we're probably talking the Sunday, Monday time frame, give or take a day. That we're still several days away, but this is certainly of interest. And we'll see last night's 0Z run of the GFS certainly throws a lot of moisture right into Southern California by the early part of next week. This particular map, by the way, from tropicaltidbits.com. Well, let's walk through the 0Z run, the conventional version of the GFS from last evening. And I wanted to take a look first here at 500 millibar height anomalies. Again, two big stories really over the next 5 to 10 days or so. A building heat wave in the middle part of the nation that will extend to the east for a while. Certainly the northeastern U.S. does not have any kind of a sustained heat wave in sight. It will continue to be cooler than normal air masses working their way into the mid-Atlantic, into the northeast U.S. Certainly can get quite warm on Sunday and Monday, but then another frontal system probably arriving Monday night ushers in cooler, more comfortable air into the northeast U.S. for Tuesday and Wednesday. But This part of the nation, the central states here, certainly have an extended heat wave coming, and part of that will be generated by building high pressure ridge aloft. And let's take a look at that right here. These are 500 millibar height anomalies as we begin the day here on Wednesday, August 16th. We'll move forward here. Here's one cooler than normal air mass crossing the Great Lakes by later tomorrow into the day on Friday. Its passage probably early in the day on Friday will usher in comfortable air from the mid-Atlantic, northeast U.S. for the bulk of the day on Friday, and that comfortably warm conditions will continue on Saturday as well. But here we are, the signs of a upper level ridge right in the heartland here, right in this area right here. By the time we get to the end of the work week, we're talking Friday morning right here. This really starts to intensify, and we'll move forward here. Watch the intensification of this all the way up into the central part of the nation and over the Great Lakes. This is now by the latter part of the upcoming week. And by the way, here's a reflection at the 500 millibar level of that tropical system of interest here. Baja California right here, Southern California right in this region right here. And we'll continue to move forward here, and this just intensifies relative to normal. Again, we're looking at the 500 millibar height anomalies way above normal over the Great Lakes, with the center of the high pressure ridge right here over the heartland. Again, a lot of hot weather in this part of the nation. And again, it can briefly get hot in the mid-Atlantic region, for example, D.C., Philadelphia, New York City, Sunday and especially on Monday, but then another cool shot comes in by the time we get to Tuesday. Here's that tropical system reflected at the 500 millibar level by Sunday, and we'll go all the way into Monday morning. And look at this. Whether or not it actually reaches land, somewhat irrelevant. It certainly is important whether or not it actually moves inland, but even if it stays somewhat off the coast, a lot of moisture can flow into Southern California, perhaps even into the western part of Arizona. Now, let's continue to move forward and notice the ridging extended into the east for a couple of days, but by the time we get to Tuesday, yet another cooler than normal air mass works its way from Canada into the mid-Atlantic, into the northeast U.S. That ridge kind of retrogrades back to the central and western, interior western U.S. by the time we get to next Tuesday. Well, how does this 500 millibar height anomaly pattern translate to the 850 millibar temperatures? We're looking at the anomalies here from the 0Z run of the GFS. A lot of cooler than normal air as we begin the day here at midweek across the Tennessee Valley. Pretty relatively normal in much of the mid-Atlantic and northeast U.S., and all the warmer than normal conditions relegated to northern plains and the Pacific Northwest. Now, let's move forward here rather quickly. Continuation of cooler than normal air masses dropping northwest to southeast from Canada across the Great Lakes into the mid-Atlantic, northeast U.S. No long-lasting heat wave in sight for the mid-Atlantic or northeast U.S. But out in the middle part of the country, here we go by Friday, a lot of warmer than normal conditions, hotter than normal conditions, and this is the result of that building ridge in the upper part of the atmosphere over the middle part of the nation. And this is some impressive heat here relative to normal. We're talking right here some 10, 15, even 20 degrees above normal on the Celsius scale across the central and northern plains by the upcoming weekend. And it continues for a few days there with a lot of heat over the central and northern plains. Will certainly extend into the Great Lakes region by the latter part of the upcoming weekend. Again, Sunday and Monday look to be very warm days. D.C., Philadelphia, New York City, Boston, but cooler air will come by Tuesday and Wednesday. And here we go. That heat continues into the early part of next week across the Great Lakes, Tennessee Valley, but then it's kind of squashed to the south as yet another incoming cool shot arrives, probably with a Monday night frontal passage, mid-Atlantic, northeast U.S. and cooler, more comfortable air. This is the Tuesday morning forecast map, and as warm as it gets over the northern plains, 15 degrees above normal, it gets substantially cooler than normal in the Mid-Atlantic region by the early part of next week, probably the Tuesday time frame we're looking at here, some 10 to 15 degrees below normal by next Tuesday. Meanwhile, cooler than normal conditions here in California. That's partly a reflection of what is likely to be a lot of clouds and moisture from a tropical storm over the eastern Pacific Ocean. Well, let's wrap up with the surface forecast maps from the 0Z run of the GFS. A lot of high pressure dominating the scene across much of the nation, really from California all the way into the northeast U.S. Relatively rain-free conditions with a very large high pressure system in control. We have a couple of isolated showers and thunderstorms possible later today into tonight across the northeast states, and there'll be a repeat performance, more widespread showers and thunderstorms later tomorrow into early Friday in the northeast U.S. with the next cool front that ushers in that comfortable air for the northeastern quadrant for later Friday night, and Saturday. Meanwhile, let's start taking a look here in the southwest U.S. And here we go. By the time we get to Saturday, we start to see a very strong tropical system off Baja California. This is off to the south and west of Baja California. Again, this is the 0Z run of the GFS. Then we'll move forward, and we have a hot weather over the middle part of the nation. Remember, we've talked about thickness levels here being an indicator of the temperature pattern. This is by a Saturday night time frame. We're looking at 588 thickness value here. That's a thickness between the surface and 500 millibars. This is some hot air. We even have a kind of a thermal low showing up here Saturday night over the middle part of the nation. Very, very hot conditions here, and we saw some 15 to 20 degrees above normal. But look at this. This is another big weather story here. That tropical system, and already moisture flowing northward into Arizona, into Southern California by the middle part of the upcoming weekend. We'll move a little bit farther in time, and some heavy rain depicted here in last night's run of the 0Z GFS. This will certainly be a big weather story here. Not unprecedented by any means. California certainly has had impacts from eastern Pacific tropical systems over the decades here, but this is certainly impressive here by the time we get to Sunday afternoon, and then all the way into Monday morning, just off or even right near the extreme southwestern part of Southern California by early Monday morning. Whether or not it goes over land or stays offshore, you still have a very good chance of getting copious amounts of moisture flowing northward from the eastern Pacific Ocean, tropical air mass, into Southern California, maybe even into Central California, and certainly can impact Arizona and Nevada as well by the latter part of the upcoming weekend into the early part of next week. Let's go out a little bit farther in time, and here we go all the way to next Tuesday morning. Looks like some precipitation in the form of rain can make it all the way into Central California with this system. We're talking now 6 days away next Tuesday, and here we go in the northeast U.S. A very strong cool front. Looks like it pushes off the eastern seaboard, moving in this direction by the time we get to Tuesday morning here. And this is a strong high pressure area over the upper Midwest that had its origins in Canada, and a very, very comfortably cool air mass moving into the mid-Atlantic northeast U.S. by the time we get to Tuesday of next week. So a lot going on. Probably the two biggest weather stories are building heat over the central U.S. with a little bit of an excursion into the eastern U.S. and tropical storm impact likely by the latter part of the upcoming weekend, the early part of next week, Southern California, maybe Arizona, Nevada as well. Stay tuned to arcfieldweather.com over the next few days for updates. I'm meteorologist Paul Dorian.